There's been so much hype around this phone over the past couple of weeks, with some people being amazed at what Apple have done and some people just not being impressed. If I had to pick a side, I'd probably be siding with the people who are amazed by what Apple has done. And that's because Apple has listened. Apple have delivered with a budget phone, and not just a budget phone, but a budget phone that is affordable and a budget phone which is good. I think the main question is, what is this iPhone SE like to use? And if you're coming from the original iPhone SE up to probably the iPhone 8, then this phone is a no-brainer and you should definitely get it if you're looking to upgrade. But the other question is, can you ditch your flagship iPhone for the SE? For 90% of people, this phone does everything that you want in a phone. It takes great photos, it's quick, and it does general phone stuff pretty well. Jumping to the SE though from the iPhone 11 Pro Max was quite a bit of a change. It was mostly having that home button again. My brain is so used to swiping on everything that I own at this point that actually having a physical home button seemed a little bit alien. But after swiping a few more times and nothing happening, you just remember about the home button. Because of the home button, Touch ID is now back in our lives, and Touch ID is actually a lot quicker of getting into the phone than Face ID is, but the amount of times that I've hovered my face over my phone trying to unlock it and nothing happening has been a bit embarrassing. And then I remember, oh yeah, Touch ID's back. I think Face ID on some of the other iPhones is just more natural than having to put your thumb on a button. I think the biggest downfall of this phone, if there's any, is probably that battery life. It is just a little bit weak. I've been getting about 4 and 5 hours of screen on time with this phone, and that's not terrible, of course, but it could be better. The last year or so with the iPhone 11 Pro and 11 Pro Maxes have really just spoiled us in terms of battery life and going through a whole day without charging it. And I've got used to not having to charge my phone before the end of a day. But with the SE, I think if you're using it quite a lot to take photos, if you're going to use it for games and other Twitter and Instagram stuff, then you're going to want to have a charger close by throughout the day. Let's talk about something that this phone does really well though, and that is the camera. It has a single lens, which is 12 megapixels, but because of the A13 Bionic chip that Apple has put into this phone, those photos look great. It's actually quite difficult to tell the difference between photos taken on my 11 Pro Max to the photos that I took on this. People might talk about, oh, look at the photos, you can see that this photo doesn't have an excellent dynamic range in it, but let's just stop for a second. This phone is for people who are not tech nerds like us. It's £400, and people who are buying this phone don't care about an extra bit of dynamic range. What they're looking for is a photo which they can put on Instagram or Facebook and it look good. And that's what this phone does. One thing that the phones do really well is the video, and the video on the front-facing camera of the SE is alright, it's not too bad. It can't do 4K, it can only do 1080p at 30 frames a second, but this is what it looks like when you're filming on the front-facing camera anyway. And I don't do this too often, to be honest. I don't really take any sort of selfies or anything like that, but I feel like the video quality on this is actually half decent. Then I'll swap over to the other facing camera, and this one does 4K at 60 frames per second, and you can see that the stability of this is really nice. It looks really good as well. The highlights in the sky are a little bit blown out, but it is also a bit of a kind of, you know, cloudy day. But I think this looks really quite nice as well for something that you can get in a £400 phone. So this is the video from the iPhone 11 Pro Max and the audio from it as well. And then this is also the video then from the iPhone SE2. And I don't think there's too much difference in between the two phones at all. So to get this sort of video on a camera which costs 400 quid opposed to one that cost me over £1,000 is not too bad at all. Besides the battery letting the phone down just a little bit, there's some other minor details as well, like the design of the phone, it's not exactly fresh. And then of course you have the bezels on the top and bottom of the phone. And that is an issue for people like me and other people that do tech videos, but this is what's made this phone budget. But there are way more positives about this phone than there are negatives. Like, it's got Apple's A13 Bionic chip in it, which comes with the brand new iPhones. It's quick, it makes photos and videos look really good. The phone is still going to be getting those updates in 2025 as well, to make sure that iOS is working fast and smoothly, to make sure that your battery is preserved. So this phone has more positives than it does negatives. One of the things that I noticed while using the SE for the past week or so is that the screen is not amazing. It's not as punchy and as bright as some of the other screens that are out there on the market, and when you're watching YouTube videos, I've noticed it most. But I've been comparing this screen to the 11 Pro Max, and not everybody is going to be able to have two phones to compare against, but personally I don't feel like the screen and the quality of that is as good as it could be. It's quite difficult to try and explain what this phone is like, so it's like having Coachella. If Coachella was in your back garden, you have everything that you would have of going to Coachella, but it's cheaper and easier. I've seen people complaining about Apple not being creative with this phone and just pushing out an old design, but that is what's making this phone good. It has Apple's latest chip in it. It's making the phone accessible with the price, and I think sometimes you just have to give credit where credit is due, and at this point Apple have knocked it out the park. But the answer to the question that I asked at the start of the video, can you swap your flagship iPhone for the iPhone SE? And after a bit of adjustment, yeah, of course you can. It's a brilliant phone. If you're wanting to get into Apple though, or you want to upgrade from your older iPhone and don't want to spend £800 plus on a brand new device, then the iPhone SE2 is exactly what you're looking for.